The bullets were so close Kira could feel the heat. 12 rounds remaining. For SEALs. 60-plus hostiles closing from three sides with the cliff face behind them blocking retreat. This was how it ended. Except then the first enemy fighter's head snapped back in a spray of red mist. No sound. The shot had come from somewhere beyond 1,000 yards. Then another enemy dropped. And another. Someone out there in those mountains was saving their lives. Someone who should not exist. Chief Petty Officer Kira Donovan pressed herself against the boulder, her 416 Hong Kong dollars tight against her shoulder. The Afghan mountainside offered precious little cover, just scattered rocks and a sheer drop behind them. 6 hours ago, this reconnaissance mission had been routine. Now Lieutenant Wade Carrick was bleeding from his shoulder. Petty Officer First Class Marcus Chun had taken shrapnel to his leg, and their radio operator Danny Ortiz was frantically trying to raise anyone on the damaged and PRC-163 that had caught a round during the initial ambush. The enemy fire had been precise, calculated. They had walked straight into a killing zone in this narrow valley along the Pakistan border, a region officially off-limits for American operations. The ambush had been textbook perfect, driving them backward until the cliff gave them nowhere left to go. Kira counted enemy positions by muzzle flash. 40 fighters visible, maybe 20 more in reserve. They had been patient, letting the SEALs exhaust ammunition before moving in for the kill. Standard tactics for the local militia forces that controlled these mountains. She checked her magazine again. 11 rounds now. She had made that last shot count, but someone else was making their shots count even more. Another fighter dropped, this one at nearly 1,100 yards based on Kira's quick calculation of the distant ridgeline. The suppressed crack of the bullet's impact reached her ears a full second after the man fell. Whoever was shooting possessed skills that bordered on supernatural. The range, the wind compensation, the target selection. Each shot eliminated the most tactically important enemy fighter. First the PCAM machine gunner, then the RPG team, now the fighters with the radio equipment. This was not random. This was surgical. Lieutenant Carrick grabbed her arm, his face pale from blood loss, but his grip still strong. Get Ortiz on that radio. We need extraction now. His voice carried the edge of a man who understood they were living on borrowed time. Kira low-crawled to where Danny Ortiz crouched behind an outcropping, his 21 years making him the youngest on the team. She had noticed his hands shaking during the mission brief 12 hours ago back at the forward operating base. His first real combat operation. She had pulled him aside then, told him about her own first mission, how the fear meant he was smart enough to understand the danger. It had settled him. Now his hands were steady as he worked the radio, blood streaking his face from a cut above his eye. Anything? She asked. He shook his head, took a round right through the encryption module. I can transmit, but I do not know if anyone is receiving. He kept working anyway, calling out their grid coordinates and situation report into a radio that might be broadcasting to empty air. Another enemy fighter fell, then two more in rapid succession. The incoming fire was slackening. The militia forces were starting to panic, unsure where death was coming from. They were breaking their own discipline, exposing themselves as they tried to locate the hidden shooter. Chun crawled over, his leg wound making him grimace with each movement. Anyone want to explain what the hell is happening? Because last I checked, we were the only Americans within 50 clicks of this valley. Kira scanned the ridgeline with her scope, trying to locate the shooter's position. The shots were coming from the northwest, high ground overlooking the entire valley. It would have taken hours to reach that position, which meant someone had been there before the ambush even began. Someone had been waiting, watching. The gunfire from the enemy positions had almost completely stopped now. She counted 9 bodies visible on the slope below their position. 9 perfect shots from impossible range. Whoever this was had just cut the enemy force by a fifth without missing once. Carrick was on his radio now, trying to reach their quick reaction force back at base. His face told Kira everything she needed to know. They were on their own. Before we go any further, drop a comment and let us know what state you're watching from. Maybe you have witnessed similar acts of courage where you are from. The sun was dropping toward the western peaks. In 2 hours it would be dark. The enemy would either press their attack before nightfall or wait until morning. Either way, the SEALs needed to move. Staying pinned against this cliff meant slow death from dehydration, blood loss, or the next concentrated push. But moving meant exposing themselves. And exposing themselves meant trusting that whoever was killing enemy fighters would continue doing so, would continue protecting them. Kira pulled out her rangefinder and began methodically scanning the northwest ridge. The shooter had to be somewhere in a relatively narrow band of elevation to make these shots possible. Too low and the angle would be wrong. Too high and the distance would exceed even the most capable rifle system. There, a shadow that was not quite right. A depression in the rocks that could hide a person. She marked the location in her mind, roughly 2,000 meters from their position. "Lieutenant," she said quietly, "I think I found our guardian angel." Carrick moved beside her, following her line of sight. "You sure?" "No, but there is someone up there. Has to be. No other position makes sense for these shots." He was quiet for a moment, weighing options that all ended badly. "Then we need to make contact. Because right now, we do not know if that shooter saves us to be a hero or kills us when the enemy is gone." The thought had occurred to Kira too. An unknown shooter with extraordinary skills in a region controlled by hostile forces. It could be a special operations unit from another nation. It could be a CIA asset. It could be someone with their own agenda that did not include keeping 4 SEALs alive once they had served their purpose. Chun spoke up, his voice tight with pain. "Hate to be the pessimist, but we have maybe 3 hours of daylight left. We stay here, we die. We move, we might die. We try to reach Mystery Sniper, we definitely might die. So which terrible option are we choosing?" Kira felt the weight of the decision settling on all of them. Lieutenant Carrick was the team leader, but command was only as good as the team's willingness to follow. They all knew the odds. They all knew what staying meant. She thought about the photo in her kit, the one she looked at before every mission. Gunnery Sergeant Maya Reyes, her instructor during advanced training at Camp Pendleton 3 years ago. The Marine Scout sniper who had seen something in Kira that others had missed, who had pushed her harder than anyone else, who had believed that a woman could be not just adequate, but exceptional in special operations. Maya had deployed to the same region and never came home. Declared killed in action after her reconnaissance team was ambushed. They never recovered her body. Kira had carried guilt about that for 3 years. She should have pushed harder for a recovery mission. Should have demanded they keep searching. Should have done something other than accept the official declaration and move on. Now, someone was up in those mountains displaying skills that Kira had only seen once before. The precise target selection, the patience between shots, the impossible accuracy at extreme range. It cannot be. Maya was dead. The entire team had been wiped out. But Kira's instincts, honed through 8 years as a SEAL, were screaming that something was not adding up. "We go to the shooter," she said. "It is our only chance." Carrick looked at her, then at Chun and Ortiz. The team. His team. "If we're doing this, we do it smart." "Combat Telvad." "Ortiz, you stay on that radio." "Chun, can you move?" Chun tested his leg, winced, nodded. "I will keep up. Then we move in 5 minutes." "Kira, you have point. Get us to that ridge." She nodded, already planning the route. It would take them down the slope, across open ground, then up through a series of switchbacks to reach the high position. Every meter would be exposed. Every meter would be trusting their lives to someone they could not see. The enemy fire had stopped completely now. Whoever remained in the militia force was regrouping, probably calling for reinforcements. The SEALs had a narrow window. Kira checked her weapon one more time, redistributed her ammunition, and prepared to lead her team toward either salvation or slaughter. Somewhere up on that ridge, someone was watching them. Someone who had saved their lives, but whose identity and intentions remained a complete mystery. In 2 minutes, they would start moving. In 2 hours, they would have their answer. If they survived that long. The descent was controlled chaos. Kira moved first, using the scattered boulders as cover while Chun provided overwatch despite his wounded leg. The slope fell away at a treacherous angle, loose scree threatening to give way with every step. Behind her, Ortiz helped support Lieutenant Carrick, whose shoulder wound was bleeding through the field dressing. They had covered maybe 200 meters when a radio in Ortiz's pack crackled to life. Broken, static-filled, but unmistakably a human voice trying to break through. "Say again," Ortiz transmitted. "You are broken and unreadable." The response was clearer this time, though still distorted. "Multiple enemy QRF inbound your position. Estimate 20 minutes. You need to move faster." The voice was female, American, and she was watching him right now. Kira felt her heartbeat spike. "Who is this? Identify yourself." "Static." "Then, someone who would prefer you all stay alive. There is a draw 300 meters northwest of your current position. Get there. I will cover your movement." Carrick grabbed the radio from Ortiz. "This is Lieutenant Wade Carrick, SEAL Team 3. I need authentication codes and unit identification." The pause stretched long enough that Kira thought the connection had been lost. Then the voice came back, harder this time. "You want to stand there and play 20 questions, Lieutenant, or you want to live? Because Rashid Cassm just launched every fighter he has. You've got maybe 18 minutes now." The name hit Kira like a physical blow. Cassm, the warlord who controlled this entire valley network. Former Syrian military intelligence officer wanted by 3 different governments for war crimes. The man who had orchestrated the ambush that killed Maya Reyes and her entire recon team 3 years ago. "How do you know about Cassm?" Kira demanded into the radio. "Because I have been killing his men for 3 years, the voice replied. "Now move." The transmission cut off. Kira stood frozen, her mind racing through impossible calculations. A female American who had been operating in this region for 3 years, who knew Cassm by name, who possessed elite-level marksmanship skills. It could not be. Maya was dead. The DNA evidence had been conclusive, or at least conclusive enough for the Marine Corps to declare her killed in action and move on. But the DNA had come from blood found at the ambush site, not from a body they ever recovered. "Lieutenant," Chin called out, "we standing here or moving?" Carrick was watching Kira, his face pale, but his eyes sharp. He had served long enough to read people. "You know something." Kira made a decision that would either save them or doom them. 3 years ago, a Marine Scout sniper named Maya Reyes was declared Kia in this valley. Her team was ambushed by Cassm's forces. They never found her body. "And you think," Carrick began. "I think we need to move," Kira interrupted. "Now." They found the draw exactly where the mystery voice had indicated, a narrow channel carved into the mountainside by centuries of runoff. It provided cover from direct fire and a route upward toward the high ground. The climb was brutal, especially for Chan with a shredded leg and Carrick with a shoulder wound, but fear was a powerful motivator. Halfway up, the sound of engines echoed across the valley. Technical vehicles, at least 4 of them based on the distinct rattles of their modified suspensions. Cassm's quick reaction force was arriving right on schedule. "Keep moving," the voice came through the radio again. "They cannot see you yet, but that changes in about 90 seconds. "Who are you?" Kira transmitted as she helped pull Carrick up a particularly steep section. The answer was not what she expected. "When you get to the top of this draw, there's a cave entrance hidden behind a rock fall. Get inside. We will talk there. We are not walking into an unknown position blind," Carrick said into the radio, his command authority reasserting itself despite the pain. The response was immediate and sharp. "Fine. Die out there. I am sure Cassm will make it quick." The transmission ended. Kira looked at her commanding officer, saw the calculation happening behind his eyes. They were out of options, and they both knew it. Either they trusted the voice that had saved them, or they faced Cassm's entire militia force with minimal ammunition and 2 wounded teammates. "Lieutenant," Ortiz said quietly, "I am picking up radio traffic. Local language, but the tone is not good. They sound excited." "That settled it. Move," Carrick ordered. They reached the top of the draw as the first technical vehicle came into view below. The 50 caliber machine gun mounted on its back swiveled, searching. Then a single shot rang out, and the gunner slumped over his weapon. The technical swerved wildly before the driver regained control and reversed back behind cover. The cave entrance was exactly where promised, concealed behind what looked like a natural rockfall, but revealed itself as carefully arranged camouflage once they got close. The opening was narrow, barely wide enough for them to slip through one at a time with their gear. Chun went first, weapon up, clearing the initial section. All clear. Looks like it opens up inside. They filed in, Kira taking rear guard. The moment she crossed the threshold, her eyes needed several seconds to adjust to the darkness. But as they did, she saw that this was not just a cave. This was a position that someone had been living in, operating from. Chemical lights hung from the ceiling, providing dim illumination. A sleeping area with a military-issue sleeping bag. Ammunition crates stacked against one wall. A small camp stove. Dried food packages. Medical supplies. And along another wall, something that made Kira's breath catch. Photographs. Dozens of them. Surveillance photos of Cassm's compound. His vehicles. His fighters. Maps with positions marked and routes traced. This was not a hiding place. This was a forward operating base for a one-person intelligence operation. Impressive, is it not? The voice came from deeper in the cave, from a section they had not yet cleared. Chun swung his weapon toward the sound, but Kira put her hand on his barrel. A figure emerged from the shadows, moving with the fluid economy of someone comfortable in darkness. She was smaller than Kira remembered, leaner, weathered by harsh conditions. Her hair was longer, pulled back tight. A ghillie suit hung partially off her shoulders, and across her face, 3 years of survival in hostile territory had carved lines that spoke of pain, isolation, and relentless determination. But the eyes were the same. Sharp, intelligent, missing nothing. "Hello, Kira," Gunnery Sergeant Maya Reyes said. "You are probably wondering why I'm not dead." The cave seemed to tilt. Kira had imagined this moment 1,000 times over 3 years. Imagined finding Maya alive. Imagined the reunion. But none of those imagined scenarios had included her commanding officer and wounded teammates, or the fact that Maya looked like she had been to hell and fought her way back alone. Gunny was all Kira could manage. Maya's face remained neutral, professional, but something flickered in her eyes. Recognition, maybe even relief. 3 years is a long time. We should probably catch up. But first, we need to deal with the 60-plus very angry fighters who are currently surrounding this mountain and the warlord who is absolutely going to kill every single one of you if we do not come up with a plan in the next 10 minutes. Carrick found his voice. "Gunnery Sergeant, I'm going to need a full debrief. Starting with how you survived and why you never made contact with command." Maya looked at him with an expression that suggested she had forgotten how to deal with normal military protocols. "Lieutenant, with respect, the man who ambushed my team and executed my Marines is down in that valley right now. He thinks I am dead. That gives us exactly one advantage. I have spent 3 years learning everything about his operation, his patterns, his weaknesses. So you can either court-martial me later, or you can let me help keep you alive. Your choice." The radio crackled again. This time the voice was male, speaking English with a slight accent. "American operators, this is Colonel Rashid Cassm. I know you're somewhere on this mountain. I know you are wounded. I am a reasonable man. Surrender now, and I will make your deaths quick. Continue to resist, and I will take days with each of you." Maya's expression hardened. She walked to where her rifle rested against the cave wall. The M40A6 looked worn, but meticulously maintained. She checked the chamber with practiced efficiency, then looked at the SEAL team. "So, gentlemen and lady," she said, "are we going to let that murdering bastard think he gets to dictate terms? Or are we going to show him what happens when he corners the wrong Americans?" Kira felt something shift in the cave. This was no longer just a survival situation. This had just become personal. Maya was alive. Maya had been fighting a solo war for 3 years. And now, finally, she had allies. Outside, vehicle engines revved. Cassm's forces were moving into position. The hunt was beginning. But inside the cave, something else was beginning too. A reckoning 3 years in the making. Maya chambered round and moved toward the cave entrance. Time to remind Colonel Cassm why he should have made sure I was actually dead. The war was about to change. Maya moved to the cave entrance with the confidence of someone who had made this exact movement 1,000 times. She settled into a firing position behind a carefully constructed hide, the M40A6 resting on a small sandbag. From this angle, Kira could see the weapon had been modified. Custom scope. Modified stock. This was a rifle that had been adapted and refined through years of constant use. How many are out there? Carrick asked, moving beside her carefully. Maya did not take her eye from the scope. Right now, about 40 visible. Cassm keeps another 20 in reserve at his compound 8 clicks southeast. He will call them up once he commits to the assault. The technical vehicles give him mobility, but they are also his weakness. Take out the vehicles, and his fighters lose their stomach for the fight. You have been watching him that long? Chun asked, working on his leg wound with supplies from Maya's medical kit. Every day, for 34 months, Maya replied. I know his patrol patterns, his supply routes, where he sleeps, what he eats for breakfast. I know which of his men are true believers and which ones are just there for the paycheck. I know everything except how to kill him without getting myself killed in the process. She made a minute adjustment to her scope. Until today. Today he brought himself right to me. Kira knelt beside Maya, studying the valley below through her own optics. The technical vehicles had spread out, creating a perimeter. Fighters were dismounting, moving into assault positions. Professional, disciplined. These were not farmers with AK-47s. These were trained soldiers. Cassm recruited from Syrian army deserters and Chechen fighters, Maya said, reading Kira's thoughts. He pays well, and he is smart enough to let them keep whatever they loot. Creates loyalty. The man in the blue scarf coordinating the left flank? Former Republican Guard officer. The one with the RPG team? Fought in Grozny. They know what they are doing. Then how have you survived this long? Ortiz asked. Maya's jaw tightened. By being better. By learning this terrain until I could move through it blindfolded. By never staying in one position more than 2 days. By making every shot count, because ammunition does not exactly resupply itself out here. She paused, tracking a target. By remembering every single day why I'm still here instead of going home. Why are you still here? Carrick asked quietly. You could have made contact, gotten extracted. Maya's finger rested alongside the trigger guard, not on the trigger itself. Professional discipline even after 3 years alone. Could have, she said. Thought about it every day for the first 6 months. Then I realized something. The ambush that killed my team was not random. Cassm knew we were coming, knew our route, knew our timing. Someone told him. Kira felt ice run down her spine. You think there was a leak? I know there was. Maya shifted slightly, settling deeper into her position. My team was running a classified reconnaissance operation. Only 5 people outside our unit knew the full mission parameters. Cassm's fighters were waiting in the exact spot we were supposed to observe from. They hit us before we even got into position. That does not happen by accident. So we stay to find out who, Chun said. Maya's expression was carved from stone. I stayed because my Marines deserve better than having their deaths written off as bad luck. I stayed because somewhere in our command structure is someone who sold us out. And I stayed because Cassm executed my team leader while I watched from hide 300 meters away. Too far to help, too close to miss a single detail. The cave fell silent except for the distant sound of engines and shouted commands in Arabic. Kira understood now. Maya had not just survived. She had transformed survival into mission. 3 years of intelligence gathering. 3 years of patience. 3 years of waiting for the right moment. You could have sent the intelligence back, Carrick said. Use dead drops. Burst transmissions. There are protocols. Maya finally looked away from her scope, meeting the lieutenant's eyes. And risk whoever sold us out learning I was alive? Risk them warning Cassm? No. I needed him to think I was dead. Needed him confident. Needed him to make mistakes. And for 3 years, he has been making mistakes. I know where every weapons cache is hidden. I know his financial networks. I know which Pakistani intelligence officers are on his payroll. I know everything. I just needed someone to help me use it. She returned to her scope. And then you 4 dropped into my valley. A fighter below moved into the open, scanning the mountain with binoculars. Maya tracked him smoothly, breathing slow and steady. Range is 920 meters. Wind is 4.2 miles per hour quartering from the east. Elevation difference is 115 meters. She fired. The suppressed shot was barely louder than a cough. 3 seconds later, the fighter dropped, the binoculars falling from his hands. The other fighters immediately dove for cover, their advance halted. Maya cycled the bolt with practiced efficiency, already searching for the next target. "You're going to give away this position," Carrick said. "Already compromised," Maya replied. "They know someone is up here. They just do not know who or how many. Let them think you brought a sniper with you from your team. Let them think they are facing standard SEAL tactics." She fired again. Another fighter down. This one had been trying to flank through a dry stream bed. What they're not thinking is that the ghost who has been haunting Cassm for 3 years is back from the dead and very, very angry. Ortiz was back on the radio, trying different frequencies. His face suddenly lit up. "Lieutenant, I have got someone. Weak signal, but it is definitely American." Carrick moved to him quickly. "Who?" Identifying as Viper 6. Asking for authentication. "That is the QRF commander," Carrick said. He grabbed the handset. "Viper 6, this is Dagger 1 Actual. Authentication code is Zulu Tango 94. The response crackled through. "Dagger 1, authenticate received. What is your situation?" Carrick laid it out quickly. "For personnel, 2 wounded. Surrounded by hostile force estimated at 60 personnel with vehicle-mounted weapons. Currently in defensive position, but situation is critical." "Understood, Dagger 1. Be advised we are spinning up extraction package now, but we are looking at minimum 6 hours before birds are in your area. This region is technically denied airspace. We need diplomatic clearance." 6 hours, Maya said quietly. "Cassm will have called in every fighter he has by then. We will be facing over 100. She studied the valley, calculating. Then her expression changed. "Or we can make Cassm think he has already won." Everyone looked at her. Kira recognized that expression. It was the same one Maya used to get during training exercises right before she proposed something that sounded insane but turned out to be brilliant. "You want to elaborate, Gunny?" Chen asked. Maya pointed to a narrow defile on the eastern edge of the valley that leads to a series of caves that connect to a wadi system. It eventually emerges about 6 clicks from here, well outside Cassm's perimeter. The route is hell. Narrow passages, vertical climbs, sections where you're moving on your belly. But is navigable. "And you know this how?" Carrick asked. "Because I have used it before. It is one of my escape routes." Maya looked at each of them in turn. "We make Cassm think he has trapped us here. Keep him focused on this position. Then we slip out through the caves while he is wasting ammunition on an empty hole." "What about extraction?" Kira asked. "The wadi system emerges near an old Soviet airstrip. Flat enough for helicopters. Open enough for them to get in and out quickly. We make it there, we make a home." Kara considered this, weighing impossible options. "And if Cassm figures out we are gone? Then we run faster than he chases," Maya said simply. "But he will not figure it out because I'm going to keep him busy. Set up my rifle on a remote trigger. Use the chemical lights to fake movement in the cave. By the time he realizes he is shooting at shadows, you will be at the extraction point." "We," Kira corrected. "You mean we will be at the extraction point?" Maya shook her head. "Someone needs to sell the deception. Keep him committed here long enough for you to clear the area." "That person is me." "Absolutely not," Carrick said. "I am not leaving a Marine behind. Especially not one who has already been left behind once." Maya's face softened almost imperceptibly. "I appreciate that, Lieutenant, but I'm not asking permission. I am giving you the only option that gets your team out alive. You have 2 wounded men. You have a 6-hour window. You have 1 shot at this. Do not waste it on misplaced loyalty." Kira felt anger flare hot in her chest. "After 3 years, you think we are just going to leave you again?" Maya met her eyes, and for the first time, Kira saw past the hard exterior to the exhaustion beneath. "I have been alone for 3 years, Kira. 3 years of cold and hunger and fear and pain. 3 years of watching my back every second. 3 years of wondering if anyone remembered my name. And you know what kept me going? Knowing that I still had a mission. That I could still do some good. That maybe, just maybe, I could make Cassm pay for what he did." She looked back toward the valley. Today I can do all of that and save 4 Americans in the process. That is called a good day in my world. So please do not take it away from me by being stubborn. The radio crackled again. Cassm's voice, smooth and confident. I grow impatient, Americans. You have 1 hour to surrender. After that, I will assume you prefer the hard way. I assure you, you will not enjoy the hard way. Maya smiled without humor. The hard way is what I have been giving him for 3 years. Time to remind him how hard it can get. She looked at the SEAL team. 1 hour. I can give you 1 hour before he commits everything to an assault. That should be enough to get you into the cave system and clear of the immediate area. After that, you are on your own until extraction. Carrick made the decision. All right, we move in 10 minutes. But Gunny, you are not staying. You're just buying us time to get clear. Then you collapse back through a secondary route. Understood? Maya nodded, though Kira could see in her eyes that she was making no such commitment. The war had changed Maya. 3 years of isolation had turned her into something harder than a Marine who had deployed here. Someone who saw herself as already lost, already sacrificed, already dead in all the ways that mattered. Kira grabbed Maya's arm. I am not losing you twice. Maya looked at her hand, then at Kira's face. Then you better move fast, because Cassm is running out of patience, and I am running out of ammunition. And when both of those things hit zero at the same time, this mountain is going to get very loud, very fast. The cave system was worse than Maya had described. Kira led the team through passages so narrow, she had to remove her pack and drag it behind her. The rock pressed against her from all sides, cold and unforgiving. Behind her, she could hear Chin struggling with his wounded leg, his breathing harsh and labored. Lieutenant Carrick had his shoulder wrapped tight, but the bleeding had started again. Ortiz carried the damaged radio and most of their remaining ammunition. They moved in complete darkness, relying on night vision and Maya's hastily drawn map. Maya had stayed behind the cave entrance, setting up her deception. The last thing Kira had seen was the Marine rigging a string from her rifle to a battery-operated motor salvaged from some old equipment. It would fire the weapon at irregular intervals, making Cassm think the cave was still occupied. But Kira knew Maya well enough to recognize a suicide mission disguised as tactics. The plan called for Maya to collapse back through a secondary route once the deception was in place. Kira did not believe for 1 second that Maya intended to follow that plan. Keep moving, Carrick ordered quietly. We're not helping her by slowing down. They had been in the cave system for 40 minutes when the first shot echoed from somewhere behind them. Maya's rifle, firing on its automated trigger. Then another shot. Then silence. She is selling it, Chin said, making them think she is conserving ammunition. Another shot cracked through the mountain. Then the unmistakable sound of return fire. Heavy machine gun bursts, the .50 caliber from the technical vehicles. Cassm was taking the bait. The cave passage opened into a larger chamber, tall enough to stand. Kira called a halt, letting Chun rest his leg while Carrick changed his dressing. Ortiz checked the radio again. Still nothing, he reported. Whatever is between us and base is blocking everything. Kira studied Maya's map by the glow of a chemical light. They were roughly halfway through the cave system. The route ahead split into 3 different passages. Maya had marked the correct path, but the notation was minimal. Trust your instincts, it read in Maya's precise handwriting. Left passage sounds wrong. Right passage smells wrong. Middle passage feels wrong, but is correct. What does that even mean? Chun asked, reading over her shoulder. It means she has been through here enough times to know the subtle differences, Kira said. We take the middle passage. The sounds of gunfire were intensifying behind them. Cassm was committing to his assault on the cave. That was good. It meant the deception was working. It also meant Maya was running out of time to collapse back to safety, if she had ever intended to. They pushed deeper into the mountain. The middle passage narrowed again, forcing them to move single file. The air grew thinner. Kira's lungs burned with each breath. The altitude, combined with exertion, was taking its toll. Then the passage began to angle downward steeply. Too steeply. Kira found herself sliding more than climbing. using the rough rock to slow her descent. Behind her, Carrick cursed as his wounded shoulder hit the wall. "Everyone good?" Kira called back. "Define good," Chin muttered. They emerged into another chamber, this one showing signs of use. Old fire pits. Soviet-era ammunition crates rotted in one corner. Graffiti in Russian and Pashto covered the walls. This had been a mujahideen position during the Soviet occupation, probably used again during the American invasion, and it had been used recently. Kira spotted an MRE wrapper that could not be more than a few months old. A small cache of bottled water. First aid supplies. This was one of Maya's supply points. "She lived like this for 3 years," Ortiz said quietly, looking around, just moving from hole to hole. "Not just surviving," Kira corrected. "She was fighting a war. Alone." The thought of it hit her hard. Maya, isolated in these mountains, cold and hungry, hunted, carrying the weight of her dead team and the knowledge that someone had betrayed them. 3 years without backup. 3 years without relief. 3 years of pure survival and slow vengeance. "We need to keep moving," Carrick said, but his voice was subdued. The reality of what Maya had endured was settling on all of them. They followed the passage as it wound deeper into the mountain. The sounds of gunfire had stopped. Either Cassm had pulled back to regroup, or he had discovered the deception. Neither option was good. Then Ortiz's radio crackled. Not with a transmission, but with static that indicated they were getting closer to open air. The signal was trying to punch through. "Try it," Carrick ordered. Ortiz keyed the handset. Any station, this is Dagger 1. "How copy?" "Nothing." He tried again. Then a response, broken but readable. "Dagger 1, this is Viper 6. You are weak and intermittent. What's your status?" Carrick took the handset. "Viper 6, we are mobile and headed for alternate extraction point. We'll transmit coordinates when we reach position. Be advised we have additional personnel requiring extraction. 1 Marine, long-term isolated medical evaluation needed." He paused, then added, "Priority extract. This one does not get left behind again." "Understood," Dagger 1. Standing by for coordinates. The passage began to widen. Fresh air was filtering in from somewhere ahead. They were getting close to the exit. Kira felt relief starting to build, then crushed it down. They were not safe yet, and Maya was still back there. The passage opened onto a ledge overlooking a wadi system. The Soviet airstrip was visible in the distance, exactly where Maya had said it would be. Cracked concrete and rusted equipment, but flat and open. A helicopter could get in and out. Carrick pulled out his GPS and transmitted coordinates. Viper 6 confirmed receipt and estimated 40 minutes to arrival. 40 minutes. They could make it. They could actually make it. Then the radio crackled again, different frequency. Cassm's voice, but this time speaking to someone else. His words were in Arabic, but Ortiz had enough language training to translate. "He is pulling his forces back from a cave," Ortiz said. "He knows we are gone, and he is angry." "How angry?" Chin asked. Ortiz listened. "He is offering 10,000 American dollars to whoever brings him the woman sniper alive. He wants to know if the ghost is real or if he's been fighting shadows." Kira's blood went cold. Cassm knew, or at least suspected, and if he knew Maya was alive, he would dedicate everything to finding her. She grabbed the radio from Ortiz and switched to the frequency Maya had been using. "Gunny, if you can hear this, they know. Collapse back now. We are at the extraction point. We're coming home, and you're coming with us." Static. Then Maya's voice, calm despite the situation. "Good to hear you made it. I'm moving to secondary egress. We'll meet you at the strip." But Kira heard something in the background of Maya's transmission. Engine noise. Close. Too close. "Maya, what is your actual situation?" The pause told Kira everything. "I've got some company. Nothing I cannot handle. Just get to that extraction point and make sure those helicopters do not leave without you." The transmission cut off before Kira could respond. She looked at Carrick, saw her own concern reflected in his face. "We need to go back for her," Kira said. Carrick shook his head. "She has been evading Cassm for 3 years. She knows this terrain better than anyone. We go back, we risk the entire team." He was right. Tactically, strategically, By every measure of military logic, he was absolutely right. But Kira had spent 3 years carrying guilt over not pushing hard enough to find Maya's body, not demanding a real search and rescue operation. She was not doing that again. Lieutenant, with respect, I am going back. You get Chun and Ortiz to that extraction point. Get them home. But I am not leaving Maya behind twice. Carrick studied her face. You know I cannot authorize that. Then do not authorize it, Kira said. Court-martial me when we get back. But I'm going. She checked her weapon, redistributed her ammunition. She had maybe 30 rounds left. Not much, but it would have to be enough. Chin spoke up. For what it is worth, Lieutenant, I would do the same thing. That Marine saved our lives. Kira is right. We do not leave her behind. Carrick looked at his team, then at the valley where Maya was somewhere running from Cassm's forces. He made a decision that probably violated a dozen regulations, but honored something more important than regulations. Ortiz, you stay here and guide the extraction birds in. Chun, you are with me. Kira, you have point. We move fast, and we move smart. We find Gunny Reyes, we extract her, and we all go home. Clear? Clear, Kira said. They began moving back into the cave system, retracing their route. Behind them, Ortiz got on the radio to update Viper 6. The helicopters were 20 minutes out now. They had 20 minutes to find Maya, get back to the strip, and get out of this nightmare. 20 minutes between mission success and complete disaster. Somewhere in the mountains ahead, Maya was running, and somewhere behind her, Cassm was hunting. The ghost he thought he had killed 3 years ago was real, and he wanted her back. Kira pushed harder, moving through the caves with desperate speed. She had found Maya once today. She would find her again. She had to, because the alternative was unthinkable. And Kira had already spent 3 years living with unthinkable alternatives. She was not doing it again. Not today. Not ever. They found the first sign of Maya 300 meters back into the cave system. Blood on the rock wall, still wet. Not much, just a smear where someone had braced themselves while moving fast. Kira touched it, felt the sticky warmth confirm her worst fear. She's hit, Kira said. Carrick examined the blood. Could be from earlier. Could be nothing serious. But the trail of blood drops leading deeper into the caves told a different story. Maya was wounded and moving. The question was how badly and how far ahead. They pushed forward, following the blood trail and the subtle signs that only someone trained to track could recognize. A scuff mark where Maya's boot had slipped. A handprint on the wall where she had steadied herself. Small things that painted a picture of someone moving fast, but losing strength. The cave passage opened into a junction point where 3 tunnels converged. The blood trail split. Drops going left. A smear going right. Maya was trying to confuse pursuit, even while wounded. Which way? Chin asked. Kira studied both trails, thinking like Maya would think. Left tunnel, sloped downward. Easier movement, but potentially a dead end. Right tunnel climbed steeply. Harder, but led toward multiple exits. Right, Kira said. She would take the hard route. Always has. They climbed, the passage narrowing until they were moving on hands and knees. Carrick's shoulder was bleeding again, leaving his own trail behind them. Chin's leg was worse, his face gray with pain, but he kept moving. Then they heard it. Voices echoing through the cave system. Speaking Arabic, Cassm's fighters had entered the caves. How many? Carrick whispered. Chin listened carefully. At least 6, maybe 8. They're spread out, searching multiple passages. The voices were getting closer. Kira made a quick decision. There was a small side chamber just ahead, barely large enough for the 3 of them. They squeezed inside, weapons ready, and waited in absolute silence. 2 fighters passed within meters of their position, flashlight beams cutting through the darkness. They were moving cautiously, weapons up, clearly aware that cornering a skilled operator in a cave was dangerous work. After they passed, Kira led the team out and continued forward. The blood trail was fresher now. They were gaining on Maya. The passage emerged onto a narrow ledge inside a massive cavern. Soviet-era equipment lay scattered below, probably an old weapons depot. And there, across the cavern on another ledge, was Maya. She was in a defensive position behind some rocks, her rifle aimed at the passage she had come through. Her left arm hung awkwardly, blood-soaked her side, but her hands were steady and her eyes were alert. Kira risked a low whistle, the signal they had used during training. Maya's head snapped toward them, weapon tracking, then recognition hit, and she lowered the rifle slightly. "What are you doing here?" Maya called across the cavern, her voice tight with pain, but still strong. "Extraction package inbound," Kira replied. "We are getting everyone out. That includes you." Maya shook her head. "Cassm has at least 20 fighters in these caves now. You lead them back to the extraction point, and you compromise the entire operation. Then we deal with them here," Carrick said. "How bad is the wound?" Maya looked down at her side. "Shrapnel from a grenade. Got careless when I was collapsing back. Caught some fragmentation. I have had worse." But Kira could see the lie. Maya was hurt badly. The amount of blood on her clothing said she did not have much time before shock set in. "There's a rope bridge," Maya said, gesturing to the cavern below. "Crosses to this side. Soviet engineers built it for moving equipment. It is old, but it should hold." Kira looked down. The bridge was a nightmare of frayed rope and rotted wood planks spanning a 40-foot gap over a drop that disappeared into darkness. It looked like it would collapse if you breathed on it wrong. Shen voiced what they were all thinking. "That thing has not been used in 40 years. 37, Maya corrected. "I counted the rings on the rope when I first found this place, and I have used it twice. It holds." More voices echoed through the caves. Cassm's fighters were getting closer, their search pattern tightening. "We need to move now," Carrick said. Kira went first, testing each plank before putting her weight on it. The bridge swayed and creaked but held. Halfway across, one plank crumbled under her boot, and she caught herself on the rope, her heart hammering. But she made it across. Chun came next, his wounded leg making every step in agony. Then Carrick, his shoulder wound leaving blood drops on the ancient wood. They reached Maya's position just as flashlight beams appeared in the passage Maya had been watching. The fighters had found her trail. Maya tried to stand and almost fell. Kira caught her, feeling the fever heat radiating from her skin. The wound was infected. 3 years in these mountains with minimal medical supplies had left Maya's immune system compromised. "How long have you been running with this?" Kira demanded. "Since the cave," Maya admitted. "Caught the grenade fragments when I was setting up the deception. Thought I could push through it." She sagged against Kira, the adrenaline that had kept her moving finally running out. Kira felt the full weight of Maya's 3 years of survival. The malnutrition, the untreated injuries, the constant stress. Maya had been running on willpower alone for longer than anyone should have to. "I have got you," Kira said quietly. "I have got you." Touching moment, a voice said from across the cavern. The flashlight beams converged on them as 8 fighters emerged onto the opposite ledge, weapons raised. "But we will take it from here." The man who spoke stepped forward. Even in the dim light, Kira recognized him from Maya's surveillance photos. Colonel Rashid Cassm himself. He was smaller than she expected, almost scholarly in his wire-rimmed glasses, but the cruelty in his eyes was unmistakable. "The ghost returns," Cassm said, looking at Maya. "I must admit, when my men reported someone matching your description, I hardly believed it. I saw you die 3 years ago. Watched you bleed out in the rocks while your team burned." Maya lifted her head, meeting his eyes with pure defiance. "You saw what I wanted you to see. While you were celebrating my death, I was learning everything about you. Every mistake you made, every weakness in your operation, every crime you committed." Cassm smiled. "And yet here you are, wounded, trapped, about to die for real this time. All that knowledge dies with you." Carrick raised his weapon, but Cassm's fighters had them covered from superior position. 8 rifles against 3, with 1 wounded Marine who could barely stand. The mathematics were brutal. "You can kill us," Carrick said, "but our extraction team knows we are here. They will level this entire valley looking for us." Cassm shrugged. "Let them look. These caves go for miles. By the time they find you, there will be nothing left to find. I learned that lesson from your ghost here. Sometimes the best way to make someone disappear is to ensure the body is never recovered." He gestured to his fighters. "Take them. I want the woman alive. The others you may kill however you prefer. The fighters began moving toward the bridge. Kira calculated odds and found nothing good. They were outgunned, outmaneuvered, and Maya could barely hold herself upright. Then Maya spoke, her voice weak but clear. Remember what I taught you about last-ditch tactics? Kira looked at her, saw the ghost of a smile on Maya's bloodless lips, and understood. The bridge, Maya said. Cut the bridge. Kira drew her knife as the first fighter stepped onto the ancient rope bridge. One slash through the main support rope, and the entire structure gave way with a groan of tortured wood and snapping fiber. The fighter screamed as he fell into the darkness below, the sound cutting off abruptly. The bridge collapsed completely, leaving an impassable gap between the two ledges. Cassm's expression shifted from confident to furious. You think that saves you? He shouted across the gap. You just trapped yourselves. That ledge has one exit and we control it from this side. You have nowhere to go. Maya was fading, her eyes struggling to focus. She leaned close to Kira, her voice barely a whisper. Behind you, 20 meters. Small passage. Leads to the wadi, marked with 3 stones. You knew we would have to cut the bridge, Kira realized. Maya's smile was sad. I've been planning my death in this cave for 2 years. Figured if I was going out, I would take Cassm with me. But this works too. Get out. Get home. Tell them what happened here. We're all getting out, Kira said firmly. Cassm was shouting orders to his men. They were already moving, trying to find another route across or around. They had minutes at best. Chen found the passage, marked exactly as Maya described. It was barely wider than their shoulders, but it led outward toward fresh air and freedom. Move, Carrick ordered. They dragged Maya into the passage, moving as fast as they could with her dead weight between them. Behind them, they could hear Cassm screaming promises of what he would do when he caught them. But they were already gone, swallowed by the mountain that Maya had made her home for 3 terrible, lonely years. The mountain that had kept her alive. The mountain that was now going to let her leave. If they could move fast enough. If Maya could hold on long enough. If the extraction birds were still waiting. Too many ifs. But it was all they had. Kira held Maya tighter and pushed forward into the darkness, refusing to consider any outcome where Maya did not make it home. The passage spit them out onto a rocky slope just as the sun broke over the eastern peaks. Kira had lost track of time in the caves, but dawn meant they had been moving for nearly 18 hours straight. Maya was unconscious now, her breathing shallow and rapid. Shock was setting in. Carrick got on the radio immediately. Viper 6, this is Dagger 1. We are out of the caves and moving to extraction point. Be advised we have 1 urgent surgical. I repeat, urgent surgical. The response was immediate. Dagger 1, Viper 6. Birds are on station at the strip. We have medic standing by. What is your ETA? Kira looked at the wadi below, then at the Soviet airstrip visible in the distance. 2 kilometers of open ground with no cover. And somewhere behind them, Cassm's forces were coming. 15 minutes, Kara transmitted. Maybe less. Chen had fashioned a carry sling from their remaining gear. He and Kira took Maya between them while Carrick provided security despite his wounded shoulder. They moved down the slope as fast as the terrain allowed. Halfway to the strip, Ortiz appeared, running toward them. He took Maya's weight from Chun without a word, letting the wounded SEAL focus on movement. Together they pushed toward the helicopters that Kira could now see clearly, 2 MH-60s with rotors already turning. Then the radio crackled with Cassm's voice, speaking English for their benefit. I see you Americans, running like rats to your hole. But you will not make it. I have vehicles moving to cut you off. I have fighters taking position. Your helicopters will be shot from the sky. Carrick ignored him, focused on reaching the birds. But Kira could see technical vehicles emerging from a draw to the north, racing to intercept them. The 50 caliber machine guns swiveled in their direction. Contact north, she called out. Multiple vehicles. The lead helicopter lifted slightly, its door gunner acquiring targets. The M134 minigun opened up with a sound like tearing fabric, 6,000 rounds per minute shredding the lead technical. It swerved wildly and flipped, tumbling in a cloud of dust. The other vehicles scattered, looking for cover, but the open terrain offered nothing. The second helicopter joined the fight, both door gunners laying down suppressive fire that turned the northern approach into a kill zone. "Keep moving," Carrick shouted. They reached the cracked concrete of the Soviet airstrip with bullets kicking up dust around them. The lead helicopter settled onto the ground, its crew chief waving them urgently forward. They ran the last 100 meters, every step feeling like it might be their last. Hands reached down, pulling Maya aboard first. A Navy corpsman was already working on her before she was fully inside. Then Ortiz, then Chun, then Carrick. Kira was last, diving through the door as the helicopter lifted. She looked down and saw Cassm's vehicles converging on the strip, too late. The door gunner fired one last burst, forcing them to take cover. Then they were climbing, the mountains falling away below. The corpsman had Maya on her back, cutting away her bloody clothing to access the wounds. Kira moved beside him, needing to see, needing to know. "How bad?" she asked. The corpsman worked quickly, his hands steady despite the helicopter's movement. "Shrapnel wounds to the left flank and upper arm. Infected. She is septic. I am starting antibiotics and fluids, but she needs a surgeon." He looked at Kira with professional sympathy. "How long has she been living rough out there?" 3 years, Kira said quietly. The corpsman's eyes widened slightly, but he kept working. "That explains the malnutrition and dehydration. Her body has nothing left to fight with. We need to get her to Bagram yesterday." The pilot's voice came through the intercom. "We are 20 minutes from Bagram. Trauma team is standing by." Maya's eyes fluttered open. She looked at Kira, confusion giving way to recognition. "We made it." Kira took her hand, felt how cold it was. "We made it. You're going home, Gunny." Maya's grip tightened slightly. "My team. I need to tell them about my team." "We know," Kira said gently. "We know about the ambush. We know about Cassm. And we're going to make sure everyone knows what you did out there." But Maya was shaking her head, agitated. "No, you do not understand. The leak. The person who sold us out. I figured it out. I know who it was." Everyone in the helicopter went silent. Carrick moved closer, his command presence reasserting itself despite exhaustion. "Gunny, who was it? Who compromised your mission?" Maya struggled to focus, fighting the shock and fever. "Our mission was classified at the Special Access Program level. Only 5 people outside our team knew the full operational details. Cassm knew everything. Our route, our timeline, our objective. Someone told him." She paused, gathering strength. "I spent 3 years watching his compound. I saw things, documents, communications. I photographed everything I could. And 6 months ago, I saw him meet with someone. Someone American. Someone from our own command structure." "Who?" Carrick demanded. "Major Douglas Hendricks," Maya said, operations officer at Combined Joint Special Operations Task Force. "He has been feeding intelligence to Cassm for at least 4 years. Probably longer." The name hit like a physical blow. Hendricks was a legend in the special operations community. Multiple deployments. Bronze Star with Valor. He was being considered for a command position. "Are you certain?" Carrick asked. Maya pulled something from inside her torn jacket. A small SD card, wrapped in waterproof material. "Everything is on here. Photos of the meetings. Intercepted communications. Financial transfers. Everything." She pressed it into Kira's hand. "I was going to send it up the chain once I had enough to make it stick. But I never knew who else might be compromised. Never knew who I could trust." Her eyes closed, strength failing. "Now you know. Now you can do something about it." The corpsman was pushing fluids, trying to stabilize her, but Maya was fading fast. 3 years of deprivation and stress, combined with infected wounds and shock, were taking their toll. "Stay with us, Gunny," the corpsman urged. "We're almost there." Kira held Maya's hand, watching the mountains pass below. Somewhere down there, Cassm was alive and free. Somewhere in the command structure, Major Hendricks was still selling out American operators. The fight was not over. But at least Maya would not be fighting it alone anymore. The helicopter banked toward Bagram airfield. Kira could see the runway, the medical facilities, the controlled chaos of a major forward operating base. They were really home. She looked at her team. Carrick with his shoulder wound, Chun with his shredded leg, Ortiz exhausted but unbroken, and Maya, barely clinging to consciousness but still fighting. They had survived. Against impossible odds, surrounded and outnumbered, they had survived. The helicopter touched down and medical personnel swarmed aboard. They loaded Maya onto a stretcher and rushed her toward the trauma bay. Kira started to follow, but Carrick caught her arm. "Let them work," he said gently. "She's in good hands now." Kira watched them carry Maya away, disappearing into the medical facility. After 3 years of isolation, 3 years of fighting alone, Maya was finally surrounded by allies. Finally safe. Finally home. A master sergeant appeared, clipboard in hand. "Lieutenant Carrick, I need to debrief your team. And we have some people from intelligence who want to talk to you about something called Operation Phantom Lead." Carrick pulled out the SD card Maya had given them. "Tell intelligence we have information about a significant security breach. Major Douglas Hendricks. And tell them we need it handled quietly until we know the full extent of the compromise." The master sergeant's face went carefully neutral. "Understood, sir. Follow me, please." As they walked toward the debrief facility, Kira looked back one more time at the medical building. Maya was in there somewhere, fighting for her life on an operating table, fighting the same way she had fought for 3 years in those mountains. But this time she was not alone. This time she had backup. This time someone had come for her. And this time, Kira silently promised, "We are going to finish what you started. Cassm, Hendricks, everyone who put you through hell. They're going to pay." The door to the debrief facility closed behind them. The mission was over, but the reckoning was just beginning. The debrief took 6 hours. Kira sat across from 3 intelligence officers who recorded every detail of the mission, from the initial ambush to Maya's revelation about Major Hendricks. The SD card sat on the table between them, sealed in an evidence bag. The senior officer, a colonel with the Defense Intelligence Agency, examined the card without touching it. And Gunnery Sergeant Reyes maintained this surveillance operation for 3 years without any official support or authorization. "Correct," Kara confirmed. She believed, correctly it appears, that there was a security breach at the command level. She could not risk making contact through normal channels. The colonel made notes. "The implications here are significant. If Major Hendricks has been compromised, we need to review every operation he had accessed over the past 4 years. That is potentially hundreds of missions. How many operators might have been killed because of him?" Chun asked quietly from his wheelchair. His leg was in a cast now, surgery completed while they had been debriefing. The colonel's face was grim. "We will investigate fully. But first we need to verify the contents of this card. Until we do, this information stays in this room. No one outside this debrief speaks about Major Hendricks. Clear?" They all nodded. Kira understood the necessity, but it grated on her. Somewhere on this base, Hendricks was going about his day, believing he was safe, believing his betrayal remained hidden. "What about Cassm?" Kira asked. "He is still out there, still operating." The colonel looked at her with something approaching sympathy. "Colonel Cassm is a problem we have been trying to solve for 5 years. If this evidence confirms what Gunnery Sergeant Reyes claims, if Hendricks has been protecting him, then we finally have the leverage we need to take action." He stood, gathering his materials. "Get some rest. All of you. We will reconvene once the medical situation stabilizes and we have analyzed the intelligence." After they were dismissed, Kira went straight to the medical facility. She found Maya in the ICU, surrounded by monitors and 4 lines. A surgeon met her outside the room. "She is critical but stable," the surgeon explained. "We removed 14 pieces of shrapnel and debrided extensive infection. Her body is severely depleted. Malnutrition, dehydration, multiple healed fractures that were never properly set. This woman has been through hell. Will she make it?" Kira asked. The surgeon was quiet for a moment. 24 hours ago, I would have said no. But she has fought this long, survived this much. I'm not betting against her. Kira was allowed 5 minutes at Maya's bedside. The Marine looked small in the hospital bed, diminished by the tubes and wires. But her chest rose and fell steadily. She was still fighting. I gave him the card, Kira said quietly, even though Maya could not hear her. They are going after Hendricks. Going after everyone who sold you out. And when you wake up, you're going to see it happen. You're going to see justice. She stayed until a nurse gently reminded her that visiting hours were over. Walking back to the temporary quarters assigned to the team, Kira felt the exhaustion finally catching up. 36 hours without real sleep. A firefight. A cave escape. A helicopter extraction. But her mind would not stop working. Hendricks had sold out Maya's team. Had probably sold out others. How many operations have been compromised? How many lives lost? She found Carrick and Chun in the team room, along with Ortiz. They looked as exhausted as she felt, but equally unable to rest. I keep thinking about it, Chun said. 3 years she was out there. Alone. And we just went on with our lives like she was gone. We thought she was dead, Ortiz pointed out. We all did. But she was not, Kira said. She was surviving. Fighting. Waiting for someone to come for her. Carrick looked at each of them. We did come for her. Maybe 3 years late, but we came. And we got her out. That count for something. A knock on the door interrupted them. The DIA colonel entered, his expression unreadable. We have preliminary results from the SD card. He laid out printed photographs on the table. Images of Major Hendricks meeting with Cassm at various locations. Bank transfer records showing payments to offshore accounts. Intercepted communications discussing operational details. It is all here, the colonel said. 3 years of evidence. Meticulous documentation. Gunnery Sergeant Reyes built an airtight case. So what happens now? Kira asked. Now we move carefully, the colonel replied. Hendricks is currently at Forward Operating Base Salerno. We are arranging his transport back here for what he believes is a routine briefing. He will be taken into custody upon arrival. When? Carrick demanded. 48 hours. We need to coordinate with JAG and ensure we have all legal requirements met. A case this big, we cannot afford mistakes. And Cassm? Chun asked. The colonel smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. With Hendricks in custody, his protection ends. We have already started planning a strike package. Colonel Cassm's operational lifespan is now measured in days. He looked at Kira. Gunnery Sergeant Reyes gave us the gift of justice. When she wakes up, we will be able to tell her that every person who betrayed her is facing consequences. After the colonel left, the team sat in silence for a moment. Then Ortiz spoke up, his young face serious beyond his years. I joined the Navy to make a difference, to serve something bigger than myself. But today I learned what that really means. It means not leaving people behind. It means fighting for 3 years if that is what it takes. It means being like Gunny Reyes. We should all be like Gunny Reyes, Chun agreed. Kira felt something shift in the room. They had all been changed by this mission, by Maya's example, by the understanding that loyalty and duty sometimes demanded more than anyone should have to give, but that some people gave it anyway. 2 days later, Kira was at Maya's bedside when her eyes opened. The Marine looked around, confused, then focused on Kira. Still alive? Maya whispered, her voice hoarse. Still alive, Kira confirmed. And you're about to get some good news. She pulled out her phone, showing Maya the secure message from the DIA colonel. Hendricks had been arrested that morning. He was in custody, facing charges of espionage, treason, and conspiracy to commit murder. Maya read it slowly, then tears began running down her face. Not tears of sadness, tears of relief after carrying a burden for 3 impossible years. My team, she managed. Your team is going to get justice, Kira said firmly. Hendricks will pay for what he did. And Cassm is next. Maya gripped her hand with surprising strength. Thank you for not leaving me behind. Never again, Kira promised. You hear me, Gunny? Never again. A nurse appeared in the doorway. I hate to interrupt, but there are some people here to see Gunnery Sergeant Reyes. 2 Marine officers entered, a colonel and a lieutenant colonel. The colonel approached Maya's bed, coming to attention. Gunnery Sergeant Reyes, I am Colonel Marcus Webb, Commanding Officer of Marine Special Operations Command. I am here on behalf of the Commandant to tell you that your service, your sacrifice, and your dedication to your fellow Marines has been noted at the highest levels. He produced a purple folder. When you are recovered, there will be a formal ceremony. But I wanted you to know now that you are being recommended for the Navy Cross. Your actions over the past 3 years represent the finest traditions of the Marine Corps. Maya looked stunned. Sir, I was just trying to stay alive. You were doing a lot more than that, Gunnery Sergeant. You were ensuring that those who betrayed our nation would face justice. You were continuing your mission even when everyone believed you were gone. That is extraordinary. After the officers left, Maya looked at Kira with something approaching disbelief. Did that really just happen? It really did, Kira said. You're a hero, Maya. Everyone is going to know what you did. Maya shook her head slowly. I do not feel like a hero. I feel like someone who survived. Kira smiled. Sometimes those are the same thing. 5 days after the extraction, Kira stood in the briefing room watching a live satellite feed of Cassm's compound. The strike package was inbound. 2 Apache helicopters, a ground element from Delta Force, and overhead, an AC-130 gunship that could turn the entire valley into a kill zone. Maya was there too, against medical advice, sitting in a wheelchair with a 4-pole attached. She had insisted on being present for this. No one had the heart to tell her no. Target is stationary, the tactical operations officer announced. No movement detected for past 12 hours. Cassm believes he is safe. The DIA colonel stood beside the display. Thanks to Gunnery Sergeant Reyes, we know exactly where he sleeps, where he keeps his communications equipment, and where he stores his weapons. We have mapped every entrance and exit. There is nowhere for him to run. Chun sat nearby, his legs still in a cast but healing. Ortiz stood behind him. Carrick was on the other side of Maya's wheelchair. The team that had survived together was here to witness the end. The Apache pilots confirmed visual on target. The thermal imaging showed heat signatures inside the compound. Approximately 30 personnel. Cassm's remaining fighters, gathering in what they thought was a secure location. They had no idea that Maya had been watching this compound for 3 years. No idea that every defensive position, every blind spot, every vulnerability had been cataloged and documented. Strike package, you are cleared hot, the operations officer said. The Apaches opened fire first, their Hellfire missiles streaking toward the weapons depot Maya had identified. The explosion lit up the feed, secondary detonations following as ammunition cooked off. The fighters poured out of the buildings, scrambling for defensive positions. That was when the AC-130 began to work. The 105mm howitzer fired with mechanical precision, each round guided by coordinates Maya had provided. The compound began to disintegrate, buildings collapsing under the onslaught. The Delta Force element moved in, fast and professional, securing the perimeter and eliminating fighters who tried to flee. It was over in 11 minutes. 11 minutes to dismantle an operation that had terrorized the region for 5 years. Target down, came the report. Cassm confirmed Kia. Compound secure. Maya closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. It was not relief on her face, not satisfaction, just exhaustion, the kind that came from carrying hatred for too long. Your team can rest now, Kira said quietly. Maya nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. Sergeant Chun, Corporal Vega, Lance Corporal Halkim, Private First Class Washington. They can rest. The names of her team, the Marines who had died in the ambush 3 years ago. Kira had read their service records, had seen their photos. Young warriors who had trusted the system to protect them, only to be sold out by someone who should have had their backs. Speaking of which, the DIA colonel said, turning to another screen. Major Hendrick's arraignment is beginning now. The screen showed a military courtroom. Hendrick sat at the defense table, his face ashen. The charges were read aloud. Espionage, treason, conspiracy to commit murder, providing material support to enemy forces. The evidence was overwhelming. bank records showing over $400,000 in payments. Communications intercepts. The photographs Maya had risked everything to obtain. Hendricks had nowhere to hide. "How do you plead?" the military judge asked. Hendricks looked at his attorney, then at the gallery filled with special operations personnel who had served with the people he betrayed. His voice was barely audible. "Guilty." The word hung in the air. No trial, no defense, just acceptance of what he had done. Maya watched the screen with an expression Kira could not quite read. "Is that enough?" she asked suddenly. "He says guilty, and that is it?" "There will be sentencing," the colonel explained. "He is facing life imprisonment at minimum. Possibly death penalty, given the number of casualties his actions contributed to. But it does not bring them back," Maya said. "It does not undo what happened." "No," Carrick agreed. "It is not. But it is justice. It is acknowledgement that what happened to your team was not just bad luck. It was betrayal, and betrayal has consequences." Maya was quiet for a long moment. "Then, I want to testify. At the sentencing, I want him to hear what his choices cost." The colonel nodded. "That could be arranged." 3 weeks later, Maya stood before the court on her own legs for the first time since the extraction. The wheelchair was gone. The four was gone. She was still gaunt, still healing, but she was standing. Hendricks sat at the defense table, unable to meet her eyes. "Major Hendricks sold my team for money," Maya said, her voice steady and clear. "He took classified operational details and gave them to a man who specialized in killing Americans. He knew what would happen. He knew my Marines would walk into an ambush, and he did it anyway." She paused, gathering her words. Sergeant Chun was 24 years old. He had a wife and a daughter he never got to meet. Corporal Vega was going to re-enlist and try out for reconnaissance. Lance Corporal Kim sent money home to his parents in Los Angeles every month. Private First Class Washington wanted to be a teacher after his service. Maya's voice cracked slightly, but she pushed through. They were good Marines, good people, and they died because someone they trusted decided their lives were worth less than money. She looked directly at Hendricks, who finally raised his eyes to meet hers. "I survived, Major. I survived, and I made it my mission to ensure you would face this moment. 3 years of cold and hunger and fear. 3 years of watching and documenting and waiting. And it was worth every second to stand here and watch you answer for what you did." The courtroom was silent. Even the judge seemed affected. "Do you have anything to say, Major Hendricks?" the judge asked. Hendricks stood slowly. "I have no defense. No excuse. I betrayed my oath. I betrayed my country. I betrayed warriors who deserve better." He looked at Maya. "I'm sorry. I know those words mean nothing, but they're all I have." Maya's expression did not change. "You are right. They mean nothing." She turned and walked out of the courtroom, back straight despite the pain Kira knew she was in. Outside, the team was waiting. Carrick, Chun with a cane now, Ortiz, and Kira. "How do you feel?" Chun asked. Maya considered the question. "Lighter. Like I can finally put it down. The burden she had carried for 3 years. The weight of her dead team. The rage of betrayal. The need for justice. It was not gone completely. It would probably never be completely gone. But it was manageable now. What happens next?" Ortiz asked. Maya looked at each of them. These SEALs who had refused to leave her behind. "Medical retirement, probably. The Corps will want me to take it easy, heal properly. Maybe some desk job until I'm fully recovered." She smiled slightly. "But I've been thinking. I spent 3 years alone, fighting a war nobody knew about. Maybe it is time I teach others how to fight smart. How to survive. How to never give up, even when everything says you should." "You want to be an instructor again," Kira realized. Maya nodded. "Someone has to teach the next generation that loyalty means something. That the mission does not end just because things get hard. That we leave no one behind." She looked at Kira specifically. "Someone taught me that once. A long time ago. Time to pass it forward." 2 months later, Kira stood in formation at Camp Pendleton. The ceremony was formal, dress uniforms and flags snapping in a breeze. Maya stood at attention while the commandant pinned the Navy Cross to her chest, the nation's second highest award for valor. For extraordinary heroism while serving as a scout sniper team leader. The citation read, "Despite being severely wounded and cut off from friendly forces, Gunnery Sergeant Reyes continued her mission for 3 years, gathering critical intelligence that led to the disruption of enemy operations and the exposure of a significant security breach within United States military command." The audience applauded. Kira saw Maya's family in the front row, her mother crying openly. 3 years they had believed she was dead. 3 years of grief, now transformed into pride. After the ceremony, Maya found Kira in the crowd. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" "For not leaving me behind. For believing I was worth saving. For finishing what we started." Kira smiled. "That is what we do, Gunny. We finish the mission. Always." 6 months after the extraction, Kira stood on the firing range at Camp Pendleton watching a class of scout sniper candidates work through their qualifications. Maya moved among them with the easy confidence of someone who had mastered this craft through fire and survival. "Your breathing is off," Maya told a young Marine struggling with a long-range shot. "You're fighting the rifle instead of becoming part of it. Relax. Let the shot happen naturally." The Marine adjusted, breathed, fired. The target, at 800 meters, registered a hit. "Better," Maya said. "Now do it 14 more times without missing." Kira smiled. Maya had taken a teaching like she had been born for it. The trauma of 3 years alone had not broken her. If anything, it had refined her understanding of what truly mattered. Precision, discipline, the knowledge that survival often came down to a single well-placed shot. "Chief Donovan," Maya called out, "you going to stand there all day, or are you going to help me teach these kids how not to get killed?" Kira walked onto the range. She had been promoted to senior chief 2 months ago, a recognition of her actions during the extraction mission. Carrick had put her in for a Silver Star. The paperwork was still moving through channels. "What do you need, Gunny?" Kira asked. Maya gestured to a candidate setting up for a shot. "Show him what right looks like. He thinks he knows, but he does not know what he does not know." Kira settled into position beside the young Marine. She could feel him tense, intimidated by her presence and reputation. The story of the extraction had spread through the special operations community. 4 SEALs and a ghost Marine against impossible odds. "The key is not trying to control everything," Kira explained. "You control your breathing, your position, your trigger press. Everything else you adapt to. Wind changes, you adapt. Target moves, you adapt. Mission goes sideways, you adapt." She fired, set her mass at 800 meters. "But you never give up," she continued. "Never assume the fight is over until you are home safe. And you never, ever leave your people behind." The young Marine nodded, understanding this was about more than marksmanship. Maya pulled Kira aside as the class continued their drills. "I got a call from MARSOC yesterday," she said quietly. "They want me to consult on a new training program for extended operations in denied areas. Survival tactics, intelligence gathering, the kind of stuff I learned the hard way." "That is good," Kira said. "Your experience could save lives." Maya was quiet for a moment. "They want me to deploy again eventually. Nothing like before, just short rotations as an advisor. And I think I want to do it." Kira studied her friend's face. "You sure you're ready for that?" "I spent 3 years running from my trauma," Maya said. "Running and hiding and surviving, but never really healing. Teaching these kids, that is healing. But I need to know I can go back. Need to prove to myself that what happened does not own me." "Then you should do it," Kira said firmly. "But not alone. Never alone again." Maya smiled. "That is why I'm telling you. MARSOC wants to build a joint training cadre. Marines and SEALs working together. I recommended you to lead the SEAL component." Kira felt surprise, then excitement. "You want to work together officially?" "We work pretty well together unofficially," Maya pointed out. "Might as well get paid for it." Before Kira could respond, her phone buzzed. A message from Carrick, now a lieutenant commander at Naval Special Warfare Command. The text was simple, but its implications were significant. "Hendricks sentenced. Life without parole. Leavenworth. Full dishonor." Kira showed the message to Maya. The final piece of justice falling into place. Major Douglas Hendricks would spend the rest of his life in military prison, stripped of rank and honor. Maya read it without visible emotion. Good. That chapter is closed. Is it though? Kira asked gently. Is it really closed for you? Maya watched her students working downrange, young warriors learning skills that might one day keep them alive in impossible situations. Some of them will deploy to the same valleys I did. Some of them will face the same choices. And because of what happened, because of what we exposed, they will have a better chance of coming home. She turned to Kira. That is closure enough for me. Hendrix is in prison. Cassm is dead. My team is remembered and honored. And I am here, alive, teaching the next generation. That is more than I thought I would get when I was bleeding out in those mountains. Chin appeared at the edge of the range, walking without his cane now. His leg had healed well, though he would always have a slight limp. He had been reassigned to training command, working with new SEAL candidates. Gunny Chief, he called out. You two going to join us for the memorial ceremony tomorrow? The ceremony was for Maya's team, the Marines killed in the ambush 3 years ago. A memorial wall was being dedicated at the Marine Corps base, their names etched in stone alongside the thousands of others who had given their lives in service. Would not miss it, Maya said. The next day, they stood before the wall as a Marine bugler played taps. Maya placed flowers at the base, one for each member of her team. Sergeant Chun, Corporal Vega, Lance Corporal Kim, Private First Class Washington, names that would be remembered long after the pain faded. Carrick was there in his dress whites. Ortiz had flown in from Virginia Beach where he was stationed with SEAL Team 2, the team that had survived together, witnessing the honoring of the team that had not. Maya spoke during the ceremony, her voice carrying across the assembled Marines and sailors. These men were my brothers. They trusted me to lead them, and I could not save them. For 3 years, I carried that guilt like a weight around my neck. But I have learned something about guilt and grief and survival. She paused, collecting her thoughts. Sometimes the best way to honor the dead is to live, to take the lessons they taught us and pass them forward, to ensure their sacrifice meant something. These Marines died because someone betrayed them, but their memory will live because we refused to let their deaths be meaningless. The ceremony ended, but the team remained, standing together in quiet solidarity. They had been through fire together, had faced impossible odds, had learned what loyalty really meant when tested to the breaking point. I have been thinking, Ortiz said quietly, about what I want my legacy to be. When I am gone, what do I want people to remember? That you never quit, Chin suggested. That you kept fighting even when you were terrified. That you did the right thing even when it was hard, Carrick added. Maya looked at each of them. That you were part of something bigger than yourself. That you stood for something that mattered. That when your brothers and sisters needed you, you were there. Kira felt the truth of it settle into her bones. This was what service meant. Not the glory or the medals or the recognition. It meant being there when it counted. It meant refusing to accept that anyone was expendable. It meant fighting for each other, even when the cost was almost unbearable. Her phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from the MARSOC coordinator. The joint training program had been approved. They wanted Kira and Maya to report to Quantico in 30 days to begin curriculum development. Looks like we're doing this, Kira said, showing Maya the message. Maya smiled, genuine warmth reaching her eyes for the first time in as long as Kira had known her. Good. Because I have 3 years' worth of lessons to teach. Hard-earned, paid for in blood and cold and fear. But valuable. She looked at the memorial wall one more time. And these Marines, my team, they paid the price so others could learn. Time to make sure their sacrifice teaches something worth knowing. The sun was setting over Camp Pendleton, casting long shadows across the base. Kira stood with her teammates, with Maya, with the ghosts of the fallen, and felt something she had not felt in a long time. Purpose, clear and undeniable. The mission was not over. It had simply evolved. From rescue to recovery to remembrance to teaching the next generation how to survive and fight and never give up. This was what it meant to leave no one behind. Not just in the moment of crisis, but in the years that followed. In the memories kept alive. In the lessons passed forward. in the commitment to ensure that sacrifice always meant something. Maya squared her shoulders, looking toward the future instead of the past. "All right, team," she said. "We've got work to do. Warriors to train, standards to uphold, and a promise to keep. The promise that their brothers and sisters in arms would never be forgotten. That justice would always be pursued. That loyalty would always matter. That no one would ever be left behind. Not on the battlefield. Not in memory. Not ever." 1 year after the extraction, Kira stood in the briefing room at Quantico watching the first class of the Joint Marsoxial Advanced Survival Program complete their final exercise. 30 students had started. 22 remained. The attrition rate was intentional. This program was not designed to be easy. Maya stood beside her, reviewing the performance metrics on a tablet. The standards they had developed were brutal because they had to be. Every lesson was drawn from Maya's 3 years of survival. Every technique had been proven under the worst possible conditions. Student 7 just completed the evasion phase, Maya noted. 48 hours in hostile territory simulation with Hunter Force actively pursuing. He made it to the extraction point with 12 minutes to spare. Kira watched the young SEAL emerge from the woods, exhausted but triumphant. That was Petty Officer Second Class James Rivera, one of her own recommendations for the program. He had the right mindset, the refusal to quit even when quitting made perfect sense. The door opened and Carrick entered, now wearing the eagles of a full commander. He had taken command of a SEAL team and was visiting to evaluate the program's effectiveness. "Impressive work," he said, reviewing the results. "Your attrition rate is higher than I expected, but the ones who make it through are exceptional." "That is the point," Maya replied. "We are not trying to graduate everyone. We're trying to graduate the ones who will survive when everything goes wrong. The ones who will keep fighting when they are alone and hurt and have every reason to give up." She pulled up another file on her tablet. "We have had graduates deployed to Syria, Yemen, and back to Afghanistan. 0 casualties so far. 3 successful evasions from compromised positions. 2 intelligence operations that succeeded because our people knew how to operate in denied areas without support." Carrick nodded approvingly. "The program is working. SOCOM wants to expand it. Double the class sizes, add more instructors." Maya and Kira exchanged glances. They had built this program together, refined it through trial and error, poured everything they had learned into making it effective. Expanding meant trusting others to maintain the standards. "We will need the right instructors," Kira said carefully. "People who understand that this is not just about teaching skills. It is about teaching mindset, teaching warriors that they are never truly alone, even when they are isolated." "I have some candidates in mind," Carrick said. He pulled out a folder and handed it to them. Chen has volunteered. His experience during the extraction, combined with his injury and recovery, gives him a unique perspective on overcoming adversity. Kira felt pride surge through her. Chen had come so far from the wounded SEAL they had carried through the caves. He had turned his injury into motivation, becoming one of the most effective training cadre members at BUD/S. "Who else?" Maya asked. "Ortiz," Carrick continued. "He wants to specialize in communications and evasion techniques. And there are 3 Marine Scout snipers from your community who specifically requested to work with you, Gunny." Maya smiled slightly. "Word spreads, I guess." The ceremony that afternoon was more significant than the routine graduation. The Secretary of Defense was present, along with senior leadership from both Marine Corps and Naval Special Warfare. The joint program had become a flagship initiative, proof that inter-service cooperation could produce extraordinary results. But for Kira, the real significance was watching the graduates receive their certificates. Each one represented hours of brutal training. Each one had been pushed to their absolute limits and found something inside themselves they did not know existed. She thought about the mission that had started all this. The ambush, the cave escape, the desperate extraction, finding Maya alive against all odds. Every piece of that experience had been distilled into the lessons these warriors now carried. After the ceremony, Maya found a quiet moment alone with Kira. "I need to tell you something," she said. Kira heard the seriousness in her tone. What is it? I have been asked to return to Afghanistan. Not combat operations, but liaison work with partner forces. Teaching local units some of what we have developed here. It is voluntary, but they specifically requested me because of my language skills and regional knowledge. Kira felt immediate concern. Are you sure you are ready for that? Maya looked toward the mountains visible in the distance. I will never be completely ready. The scars do not heal that way, but I cannot let fear control me. Cannot let what happened define the rest of my life. I survived for a reason. Time to make that reason count. How long? Kira asked. 6 months. And before you ask, yes, I have thought it through. Yes, I have talked to the psychiatrist. And yes, I know I can say no. But Kira, I need to go back. Need to face it on my terms this time. Kira understood. Maya was not running toward danger. She was running toward closure, toward reclaiming a piece of herself that those mountains had taken. Then I'm coming with you, Kira said. Maya shook her head. You have responsibilities here. The program needs you. The program has Chun and Ortiz and the new instructors, Kira countered. What you need is someone watching your back. Someone who will not leave you behind if things go sideways. That is non-negotiable, Gunny. Maya's eyes glistened slightly. You really are stubborn. You know that? Learn from the best, Kira replied. 3 months later, they were back in Afghanistan. Not the same valley where Maya had survived for 3 years, but close enough that the mountains looked familiar. The landscape where nightmares had been born and somehow, miraculously, overcome. They worked with the Afghan commando unit, teaching advanced reconnaissance techniques. The Afghans were respectful and eager to learn. They had heard stories about the American Marine who had survived alone in their mountains. Maya had become something of a legend. On their 4th week in country, Maya asked Kira to accompany her on a personal mission. They took a helicopter to a remote valley, one that Maya knew intimately. This is where my team died, Maya said quietly as they walked through the rocks. This is where Hendricks sent us to be slaughtered. This is where I watched my Marines burn. She knelt in the dirt, touching the ground like it was sacred. For 3 years, I survived by turning grief into rage, into mission, into the single-minded purpose of making someone pay. And it worked. Cassm is dead. Hendricks is in prison. Justice was served. Maya looked up at Kira, tears streaming down her face. But the rage is gone now. All I have left is the grief. And I do not know what to do with it. Kira knelt beside her, putting an arm around her shoulders. You carry it. You honor it. You let it remind you why the work matters. Why training those warriors matters. Why refusing to give up matters. She gestured to the valley around them. This place tried to break you, Maya. Try to kill you and erase you and make you disappear. But you're still here. Still fighting. Still making a difference. That is what you do with the grief. You transform it into purpose. Maya nodded slowly, wiping her eyes. My team deserved better than what happened here. They did, Kira agreed. But because of what you did, because of 3 years of hell that you survived, dozens of other teams will have a better chance. Hundreds of warriors will be better prepared. The legacy of your Marines is not their death. It is your survival and what you chose to do with it. They stood together in the Afghan valley, 2 warriors who had faced the worst and refused to be destroyed by it. The sun was setting, painting the mountains in shades of gold and red. Time to go home, Maya said finally. Not just yet, Kira replied. We have got 4 more weeks of training to complete. Those Afghan commandos need us. Maya smiled through her tears. Always finishing the mission. Always, Kira confirmed. They walked back to the helicopter, leaving the ghosts in the valley where they belonged. The past would always be part of Maya, but it no longer owned her. She had taken back control, had chosen to transform tragedy into purpose. The helicopter lifted off, carrying them back to base. Below, the mountains stretched endlessly, beautiful and deadly. The same mountains that had tested Maya beyond human limits. The same mountains that had failed to break her. As they flew over the peaks, Kira thought about everything that had brought them to this moment. The ambush that should have killed them all. The mysterious sniper who turned out to be a ghost come back to life. The betrayal exposed. The justice delivered. The program built from hard lessons and harder memories. It had all led here. to two warriors choosing to face their demons rather than run from them, choosing purpose over fear, choosing to ensure that sacrifice always meant something. The mission was never really over. It simply evolved, from survival to rescue to recovery to teaching to healing. Each phase necessary, each phase earned through blood and pain and unwavering determination. Maya looked at Kira and nodded, a gesture of gratitude and respect and shared understanding. They had saved each other in ways that went far beyond that cave extraction. They had reminded each other what it meant to be warriors who refused to be defeated by anything, even their own trauma. The helicopter banked toward base as darkness fell over Afghanistan. Behind them, the valley held its secrets and its ghosts. Ahead, the future waited with all its challenges and possibilities, and they were ready for it, together. The final week in Afghanistan brought unexpected news. Kira was in the operations center when the secure message came through from Naval Special Warfare Command. She read it twice, making sure she understood correctly, then went to find Maya. The Marine was on the range with the Afghan commandos, demonstrating wind reading techniques at extended distances. She moved with the easy confidence of someone completely at home with her craft. The trauma had not destroyed her skills. If anything, it had sharpened them. "Gunny," Kira called out. "Need to talk to you." They walked away from the range to a quiet spot overlooking the valley. Kira handed her the tablet with the message displayed. Maya read it, her expression shifting from curiosity to surprise to something that looked like disbelief. "They want to promote me to Master Sergeant?" "Not just promote you," Kira clarified. "They want you to take over the Advanced Reconnaissance Training Directorate at MARSOC. You would be overseeing all Scout Sniper and Reconnaissance training for Marine Special Operations. It is a major command position." Maya stared at the message. "I have been a gunnery sergeant for 6 years. I spent 3 of those years presumed dead and living in caves. This does not make sense." "It makes perfect sense," Kira countered. "You survived the unsurvivable. You conducted a 3-year intelligence operation alone. You exposed a traitor. You helped build a training program that is already saving lives. You are exactly who should be leading this." Maya was quiet for a long moment. "My team died because I could not protect them. Your team died because someone betrayed them," Kira said firmly. "You survived because you refused to let that betrayal be the end of the story. There's a difference. The Corps sees that difference. They want you in a position where you can make sure it never happens again." That evening, the Afghan commando commander hosted a dinner to mark the end of the American team's rotation. It was a small gathering, just the commandos they had been training and a few other coalition personnel. The commander stood to offer a toast. "These Americans came to teach us skills," he said through a translator. "But they taught us something more important. They taught us that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to continue despite fear." Gunnery Sergeant Reyes, you survive alone in mountains that would have killed most warriors in days. Chief Donovan, you refused to leave your sister behind, even when doing so risked everything. You honor us with your presence. The commandos raised their glasses. The respect in their eyes was genuine. Maya had earned it through sweat and shared hardship. She had not just instructed them. She had shown them what was possible through sheer determination. After dinner, Maya and Kira walked the perimeter of the small base. The stars overhead were brilliant in the clear mountain air. The same stars Maya had watched for 3 years while surviving alone. "I keep thinking about that night in the cave," Maya said. "When you came back for me, instead of taking the extraction, you could have left me. Should have left me from a tactical standpoint." "We do not leave people behind," Kira said simply. "I know," Maya replied. "But knowing it and experiencing it are different things. For 3 years I survived by trusting only myself, by assuming no one was coming, by accepting that I was alone. Then you proved me wrong." She stopped walking, turning to face Kira. "I need you to understand something. What you did, coming back for me, it did not just save my life. It saved who I am. I was becoming something cold and hard and disconnected. Another few months, and I do not think there would have been enough humanity left to bring back." "You give me too much credit," Kira said. "No, my gain, Steve. I give you exactly the credit you deserve. You reminded me that bonds matter, that we are stronger together than apart. That loyalty is not just a word we say, but a choice we make every single day. The next morning, they flew out of Afghanistan for the last time. As the helicopter gained altitude, Kira watched the mountains fall away below. Those peaks had tried to destroy Maya, had tested her beyond any reasonable limit. But they had failed. The mountains had made Maya harder, yes, but they had not made her bitter. They had not destroyed her capacity for connection or her commitment to something larger than herself. If anything, the ordeal had clarified what mattered most. Back at Quantico 2 weeks later, the promotion ceremony was small and private. Maya had requested it that way. No press, no public ceremony, just the people who mattered. Carrick was there, along with Chun and Ortiz. The Marine colonel who had first visited Maya in the hospital performed the promotion, pinning on the new rank insignia. Master Sergeant Reyes, he said formally, you have demonstrated leadership under the most extreme circumstances imaginable. The Marine Corps is honored to have you in this new role. After the ceremony, the team gathered in the same briefing room where they had watched Cassm's compound fall. It felt appropriate somehow. A full circle moment. I've been thinking about what we accomplished, Chin said. Not just the extraction, but everything that came after. The program. The lives saved. The betrayal exposed. We changed things. We did not change things, Maya corrected gently. We reminded people what was already supposed to be true. That we take care of our own. That betrayal has consequences. That survival alone is not enough. We have to survive with purpose. Ortiz spoke up, his voice thoughtful. When I joined this team for that mission, I was terrified. I was the new guy. I did not know if I belonged. But watching you all refuse to quit, refuse to leave anyone behind, that taught me what being a SEAL really means. It means being part of something bigger than yourself, Carrick said. It means knowing that when everything goes to hell, the person next to you will not abandon you. Kira looked at each of them, these warriors who had become more than teammates. They had become family bound by shared trauma and shared triumph. We should talk about the future, she said. The program is expanding. We need to decide who we want to bring in as instructors, who we trust to maintain the standards. They spent the next hour planning, debating, building on what they had created. The conversation flowed easily, ideas bouncing between them with the comfort of people who had earned a right to disagree and debate and push each other toward better solutions. Maya pulled out a folder near the end of the discussion. I have been working on something, she said. A memorial scholarship fund for the families of operators killed by compromised operations. Money for education, support services, whatever they need. She laid out the details. She had already secured initial funding and was working with military family support organizations to identify recipients. The first scholarships would be named for her team. Sergeant Chun, Corporal Vega, Lance Corporal Kim, Private First Class Washington. Their names would live on not just on memorial walls, but in the lives of children who got educational opportunities because of them. It was healing made tangible, purpose made practical. That is beautiful, Kira said quietly. It is necessary, Maya replied. Their families suffered because someone betrayed us. The least we can do is ensure that suffering produces something positive. The meeting wound down as evening approached. They made plans to reconvene in a month to review the first expanded class results. As they prepared to leave, Maya asked Kira to stay behind for a moment. When they were alone, Maya pulled out a small box. I had this made, she said, handing it to Kira. Inside was a challenge coin, custom designed. On one side was a sniper scope reticle with the words "Never Alone" etched around the edge. On the other side were 2 sets of coordinates. The location of the cave, where Maya had hidden for 3 years, and the location of the extraction point, where they had all made a home. Between the coordinates were 5 names. Sergeant Chun, Corporal Vega, Lance Corporal Kim, Private First Class Washington, and at the bottom, one more name, Chief Petty Officer Kira Donovan. I do not understand, Kira said. You're a part of this story, Maya explained. Part of my survival. Part of everything that came after. Your name belongs there with my team because you did what they would have wanted. You did not let me disappear. Kira felt tears threatening. This was not just a coin. It was recognition, acknowledgement that she had done something that mattered. That the choice to go back, to refuse the easy extraction, to risk everything for one person had been the right choice. "Thank you," she managed. "No," Maya said firmly. "Thank you. For refusing to accept that I was gone. For believing I was worth saving. For proving that loyalty is not just something we talk about, but something we live." They stood together in the quiet briefing room. Two warriors who had been through hell and come out stronger. The journey was not over. There would be more challenges, more students to train, more missions to plan, more lives to impact. But they would face it together, never alone, always backing each other up, always refusing to accept that anyone was expendable or forgettable or beyond saving. That was the lesson that mattered most, the one they would pass forward to every warrior who came through their program, the one that had been earned in blood and cold and 3 impossible years of survival. We leave no one behind, not on the battlefield, not in memory, not ever. 2 years after the extraction, Kira stood before a graduating class of 72 warriors from the Joint Marsoxial Advanced Survival Program. The program had grown beyond anything they had originally envisioned. What had started as an experiment had become the gold standard for preparing special operations personnel for the worst-case scenarios. Maya stood beside her at the podium, Master Sergeant chevrons gleaming on her uniform. The Marine had transformed the Reconnaissance Training Directorate, implementing lessons learned from her ordeal while building on decades of institutional knowledge. Her reputation had spread throughout the special operations community. The ghost who came back from the dead. The warrior who refused to quit. Today we graduate the largest class in this program's history, Kira began. 72 warriors who have been tested beyond normal limits, who have been pushed to the edge and found something inside themselves they did not know existed. She paused, looking at the faces in front of her. Some would deploy to Afghanistan, others to Syria, Yemen, or places that did not appear on any official maps. All of them would face danger. All of them would need the skills they had learned here. But skills alone will not keep you alive, Maya said, stepping to the microphone. What will keep you alive is the mindset we have tried to instill. The understanding that you're never truly alone. That your team, your unit, your entire community has your back. That we do not give up on each other. Her voice carried the weight of experience of 3 years surviving on that exact principle. The students listened with absolute attention. They knew her story. They knew what she had overcome. 2 years ago, Maya continued, I was dying in a cave in Afghanistan. Wounded, alone, out of options. By every tactical calculation, I should have been left behind. The mission should have continued without me. That is what the numbers said. That is what logic dictated. She looked at Kira. But Chief Donovan and her team did not follow the numbers. They followed a different calculation, the one that says every warrior matters. Every person is worth the risk, that we measure success not just by mission completion, but by who we bring home. The audience was silent, absorbing the lesson. You will face impossible choices in your careers, Kira said. Moments where the easy path is to cut your losses and move on, where saving someone seems tactically unsound, where the smart play is to prioritize the many over the one. And in those moments, I want you to remember something. She gestured to Maya. This Marine should be dead. By every reasonable measure, she should have been left in those mountains. But because people refused to accept that, because they chose loyalty over logic, she survived. And because she survived, hundreds of warriors have been better trained. Dozens of lives have been saved. A traitor was exposed. Justice was delivered. That is the return on investment when you refuse to leave people behind, Maya added. It is not just about one person. It is about what that person can still contribute, what they can still accomplish, what they can still mean to others. After the ceremony, the team gathered one final time. Carrick had been selected for captain and would be taking command of Naval Special Warfare Group 1. Chin had been promoted to senior chief and was running the SEAL tactical training program. Ortiz was now a chief petty officer and had become one of the most sought-after communications instructors in the community. They stood together, These 5 warriors whose lives had been forever intertwined by a mission that should have ended in tragedy, but instead became a testament to loyalty and determination. I got word yesterday, Carrick said. The last of Cassm's network was rolled up. Intelligence services used the information from Maya's SD card to dismantle the entire operation. 14 arrests across 3 countries. Weapons caches seized. Financial networks destroyed. So, it is really over, Chen said quietly. The mission is over, Maya corrected. But the work continues. There will always be another threat. Another challenge. Another situation that demands we be better than we think we can be. She pulled out a folder, distributing papers to each of them. Applications for the next evolution of the program. Advanced training for partner forces. Courses for allied special operations units. Expansion into new domains. This is what we built, she said. Not just a training program, but a philosophy. A commitment that loyalty and excellence are not opposing values, but complementary ones. That we could demand the highest standards while refusing to accept that anyone is expendable. Kira looked at the applications, saw the scope of what they were proposing. It would require years of work, travel to multiple countries, coordination across services and allied nations. It was ambitious to the point of being overwhelming. It was also exactly what they needed to do. I am in, she said simply. The others nodded their agreement. They had started this together. They would continue it together. That evening, Kira found herself alone at the memorial wall where Maya's team was honored. She touched each name gently. These Marines had paid the ultimate price. Their sacrifice had set everything else in motion. Her phone buzzed. A message from Maya with a photo attached. It showed the first scholarship recipient, a young woman whose father had been killed in a compromised operation similar to the one that had killed Maya's team. She was graduating high school with honors and heading to college on the scholarship bearing Sergeant Chen's name. This is why it matters, Maya's text read. This is what we fight for. Kira saved the photo, added it to the growing collection of success stories that had come from the program. Warriors saved by better training. Families supported by the scholarship fund. Traitors exposed and brought to justice. Lives changed because people had refused to accept the easy answers. She walked back to the training facility, found Maya in her office reviewing curriculum updates. The Marine looked up, smiled, and gestured to a chair. Long day, Maya observed. Good day, though, Kira replied. 72 new graduates, all of them ready for whatever comes next. Maya nodded, then pulled out 2 glasses and a bottle she kept locked in her desk. Special occasions only. She poured carefully, handed one to Kira. To the team, Maya said, raising her glass. The ones who did not make it home. The ones who fought to bring me back. The ones who refused to quit. All of them. They drank, the burn of good whiskey warming against the weight of memory. I still think about that cave sometimes, Maya admitted. The cold, the hunger, the absolute certainty that I was going to die alone in those mountains. But you did not, Kira said firmly. No, Maya agreed. Because you would not let me. Because loyalty is not just a word we say, but a choice we make every single day. You chose me. You chose to risk everything for someone everyone else had written off as dead. She met Kira's eyes. That choice changed my life. Gave me a second chance. Gave me purpose. Gave me the opportunity to make sure what happened to my team means something. It already means something, Kira said. It means we learned. We improved. We made sure the system that failed you could not fail others the same way. Maya smiled, genuine warmth breaking through. You always know what to say. They sat together in comfortable silence, 2 warriors who had been through hell and emerged stronger. The future stretched ahead with all its challenges and possibilities. More students to train, more lives to impact, more battles to fight against complacency and the assumption that anyone was expendable. But they would face it together, always together, never alone. That was the promise that mattered most. The one forged in fire and tested beyond breaking. The one they would pass forward to every warrior who came after them. We leave no one behind. Not on the battlefield. Not in memory. Not in purpose. Not ever. Outside, the sun set over Quantico, painting the sky in shades of gold and red. A new class would begin training next week. The mission would continue. The work would go on. And somewhere, warriors were alive because of lessons learned through sacrifice and survival. Families were whole because of loyalty that refused to accept loss. The community was stronger because people had chosen to fight for each other rather than accept the easy path. Maya stood, stretched, looked at the stack of applications on her desk. Tomorrow they would start planning the next phase. Tonight they could rest. Kira followed her out of the office, turning off the lights behind them. The memorial wall was visible in the distance, names etched in stone. Reminders of the cost. Reminders of why it all mattered. They walked together into the evening, two warriors who had learned that the strongest bonds are forged in the hardest moments. That loyalty is a choice renewed daily. That purpose comes from transforming tragedy into something that honors those who came before. The mission was never really over. It simply evolved with each new challenge, each new student, each new opportunity to prove that warriors take care of their own. Always, without exception, without hesitation. If you enjoyed this story, please drop a comment and let us know your favorite part, character, or if you have had a similar situation where someone refused to give up on you. We would love to hear from you. That was the standard they had set, the legacy they were building, the promise they would keep. No one left behind. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever.